Okay, so 8.2, we're going to start getting into labeling the unit circle, and that is the majority of what pre-calculus is going to be over, is learning this unit circle. So standard position, I'm not really going to put a definition, I'm going to draw a picture instead. So standard position, you need these three things. So the initial side is always going to be the ray that's on the x-axis. The terminal side is going to be the other ray. So for example, maybe it'll be down here in the third quadrant. And the directional arrow is just the direction the angle is rotating. So for example, I don't know, maybe it's going counterclockwise. So that brings us to the kind of angles that we have. If we have a positive angle, then you're going to go counterclockwise. If it's a negative angle, then you're going to go clockwise. Okay, coterminal angles. That is where you have two angles in standard position that have the same terminal side. Okay, so for example, let's say that here is my following angle. So here's the initial side, here's the terminal side. So really I could get two angles out of this. I could have one going counterclockwise, and I could have one going clockwise. Now, this, if I were to rotate this ray right here and make a full circle, that's 360 degrees. So these two angles, well, whenever I find coterminal angles, I want to think of 360. I'm either going to subtract from 360 or, hold on, I have to give you an angle first. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, I'm going to give you 135 degrees. I'm going to give you that angle right there. You have to find the other one. So I know this one's positive because I'm going counterclockwise. I know this one has to be negative. So to find that, you take the angle that I'm giving you, which is 135, and you are going to subtract 360 from it. So if I give you a positive angle, you subtract 360. That's going to give you negative 225 degrees. So this one's negative 225 degrees. Now let's say I gave you this angle first. Then you would add 360 to it. So if I'm giving you a positive angle, you subtract 360. If I give you a negative angle, you add 360. Okay, so these are coterminal. Okay. Next page. Okay, now we're going to talk about a little bit what the unit circle all entails. The unit circle has a radius of 1. And this is always going to be the origin. So if the radius is 1, I could give this an ordered pair. That would just be 1, 0. Again, this radius is 1, so this ordered pair would be 0, 1. This also has a radius of 1, so this one's negative 1, 0. And this one also has a radius of 1, obviously, so this one's negative 1, 0. Okay, now if I were to ask you, let's go down here first to this one. Okay, so I already labeled these as ordered pairs. Now I'm going to give you the degrees. So if my ray is right here, if I'm starting out literally right here, I'm not moving anywhere, then this is going to be 0 degrees. If I go from here to here, then I have moved 90 degrees. If I have moved from here all the way to here, I've gone 180 degrees. From here to here is 270, and then all the way around is 360 degrees. You're back to where you started. So if I ask you, for example, what is the sine of 90 degrees? Or what is the cosine of 270 degrees? I have to keep these two things in mind. So that brings me to number 9. Cosine is always the x-coordinate, and sine is always the y-coordinate. So again, if I recall the ordered pairs that I have up atop there, I'm going to rewrite those in. So let's look at 90 degrees first. Here's 90 degrees. Since sine is the y value, my answer is 1. Now I'm going to look at 270. Here's 270. Here's my ordered pair. Cosine is the x-coordinate, so my answer to this one is 0. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to kind of put all that together now that I've given you all the definitions. So we are going to sketch these in standard position. Before I do that, let me draw this up here again, so I'll have to keep flipping back and forth. Okay, and this is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so I'm going to sketch, and notice it says in standard position. That means I need 3 things. I need the initial side, which is always right there. I want the terminal side, so I have to figure out where 135 is. Well, 135 is in between 90 and 180, so it's going to be somewhere in the second quadrant. And since it's a positive degree, I am going counterclockwise. So 3 things: terminal side, initial side, and directional arrow. Let's look at number 11. Okay, so first I have my initial side. Okay, terminal side, 270, that's all the way down here. So if I rotate this 270, I am going to end up right here. And again, that's positive 270, so I am going counterclockwise. Okay, I am going to cross off 14 and 15. It's because I think we have enough examples here. Okay, now we're getting into negative. So if it helps, this time I'm going clockwise. So this would be 0 still. Down here would be negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, and then back around to negative 360. Okay, so here's my initial side. negative 45 is going to be in between 0 and negative 90. So I'm going to end up somewhere down here in the fourth quadrant, and since it's negative, I'm going clockwise. 13, here's my initial side, negative 190, so I'm going clockwise again. I'm going to end up a little bit past here. I'm going to be in here somewhere. And again, it's a negative, so I am going clockwise. Okay, that should be good for that page. Let's move on. Okay, now we're going to do coterminal. And this is where you want to think of 360. Now my answer doesn't have to be between 0 and 360, so I'm going to cross that off. Okay, so let's see, I'm going to cross off 18 and 19. So I'm going to give, if I give you a negative degree, then we're going to add 360. If I give you a positive degree, I'm going to subtract 360 from that. Now here's the kicker. If I give you a negative degree, your answer should be positive. So if I add these together, I do in fact get a positive angle. This one though, if I subtract, I get 122. Well, that can't be my answer, because if this is positive, this should be negative. So that means I have to subtract 360 again, or keep subtracting 360 until I get a negative. So that is my answer to 17. Okay, now, if I go back and look at this page, right here, down at the bottom, I gave you 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. Well, it also happens that I'm going to have more angles in here that we need to talk about. And I'm going to have 3 more in each quadrant. So to get those, I have to consider the perfect, or not the perfect, the special right triangles that we talked about in 8.1. So what we probably need to do is somehow make a table somewhere. Let's see. All right, I'll just make a table right here where I crossed off. So my table is going to consist of sine, cosine, and then I'm going to put 0, 30, 45, 60, and 90. I'm going to write that down. If you know this table, it's very easy to figure out the rest of the quadrants. Okay, so where did that paper go? Here we go. So now remember, sine is the y value and cosine is the x value. And the reason we put sine first in the table is because we have tangent to worry about eventually, and that's something totally different, but it has to involve sine being first. Okay, so at 0 degrees, my ordered pair is 1, 0. But sine is the y value, cosine is the x value. Okay, 90 degrees. The ordered pair is 0, 1. But again, sine is the y value and cosine is the x value. So now that leaves me with 3 more degrees I have to come up with. That would be these right here. And to figure those out, we have the special right triangles, but I'm not going to really take the time to go through all that. I'm just going to kind of tell you what the answers are going to be. Let's see, where am I here? Here we go. So I'm just going to fill in this table, and then we will go through the rest. Okay, so sine of 45, that's going to be the square root of 2 over 2. and so is cosine. Because if you recall from yesterday, or whenever it is that we did 8-1, on a 45, 45, 90 triangle, these two sides were the same. So these two are going to have to be the same. Okay, this goes along with the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So instead of having to go into detail about how these answers are what they are, I'm just going to tell you what they are. Sine of 30 is 1/2. Sine of 60 is √3/2. Cosine of 30 is square root of 3/2. And cosine of 60 is 1/2. If you know this table, you should very easily get the rest of these answers. Now there is a pattern. Sine starts with 0, and my numbers increase until I get to 1. Cosine is this column but flipped. So you can maybe think of that. And in the middle, they all have a denominator of 2. This numerator goes 1, 2, 3. This numerator goes 3, 2, 1. Okay, so here we go. We want to figure out the exact values of cosine and sine. I'm just going to write those as ordered pairs. So at 30 degrees, I have cosine as a square root of 3/2, and sine is 1/2. Remember, cosine is the x and sine is the y. Okay, 45 degrees, they're both the square root of 2/2. Okay, that was easy enough. Let's go to this last page. Okay, 60 degrees. 60 degrees, I have cosine being 1/2, sine being the square root of 3/2. Now the rest, we're getting into where they're not on the table. So I got to figure out what I'm going to do here. So in this table, I have 30, 45, and 60. So the degree that I'm giving you, I have to decide if it's a multiple of 30, 45, or 60. I don't care about the 0, 90, just 30, 45, or 60. If it ends in a 5, then it's a multiple of 45. But since it doesn't, I have to decide if it's a multiple of 30 or 60. Well, it has to be 30. You can't do 150, or you can't do 15 divided by 6, but you can do 15 divided by 3. So that's a multiple of 30. I'm going to find the ordered pair for 30, which is right here. Whoops, can't see it. Which is right here. So I'm going to have the square root of 3/2, comma 1/2. Now, these values are just for the first quadrant. 150 is in the second quadrant. In the second quadrant, cosine, or the x values, are negative, and the y values are positive. So the first quadrant, x and y are both positive. In the second quadrant, x is negative, y is positive. In the third quadrant, they're both negative. In the fourth quadrant, x is positive, y is negative. Okay, moving on. Okay, 330. I have to decide if it's a multiple of 30 or 60. It's not 45 because it doesn't end in a 5. Well, I have to figure out, can I do 33 divided by 6? Nope. But I can do 33 divided by 3. So this again is a multiple of 30. So I'm going to use this ordered pair again. Square root of 3/2, comma 1/2. Okay, 330. There's somebody at my door. Hold on. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Okay, so 330, that would be if this is 270 and this is 360, then 330 must be in the fourth quadrant. So in the fourth quadrant, cosine is positive, which is the x, and sine is negative, which is the y. I'm going to cross off 26 and 27. I know they're negative, but I'm just going to get rid of those. I have one more left that I'd like to do. Okay, I got 240. It doesn't end in a 5, so I'm not going to use 45. It's either going to be a multiple of 30 or 60. What happens to be both? I can do 24 divided by 6, and I can do 24 divided by 3. Since it's both of them, I want the higher one, so this time I'm going to use 60. So if both can go into it, you use 60. So I'm going to look at my table. Here's 60 degrees. I'm going to use this ordered pair. Remember, cosine is first. My table's kind of backwards here. So I got 1/2 and then square root of 3 over 2. Okay, 240. That is between 180 and 270. That means both the x and the y, both cosine and sine, are negative. I think that's all for 8-2. Good luck.